of safe and habitable social housing, to include procurement of contractors and materials, strategic decisions made both locally and nationally, and the adequacy or inadequacy of ongoing monitoring of work and safety in such buildings. That's the truth. But it goes further, I'd say, than that. The truth is finding out why prior warnings and complaints and other observations about dangers relating to Grenfell and other similar social housing on a local and national scale were ignored. That's the truth, trying to find out answers to those questions. And the truth is examining the effectiveness and deficiencies of the response of local and national government in the face of the tragedy that occurred. Now, those truths we've put forward as being important elements of the terms of reference of this forthcoming public inquiry. Others are doing the same. And when I heard the judge of the inquiry immediately, within hours of being given that appointment, immediately purporting to rule out a broad inquiry, to put it mildly, my heart sank. I'll come on to the public inquiry in a moment. But how dare he say that at such an early stage in the inquiry, when surely he'd not had an opportunity of maturely reflecting upon what the needs and requirements of that quest for truth, which is, after all, surely the central core of any inquiry, dictates. And so it is important that we obtain the truth within the public inquiry, within the coroner's courts, within the criminal courts, within the civil courts, for accountability, for transparency, and for lessons that must be learned, and for justice to be done to those that lost their lives and the people they've left behind. It's important also, and I know that people here that have been so affected by the tragedy know this, but it's important that when it comes to lawyers and others working in this area, that we remember that although we as lawyers, and no doubt people here who have important contributions to make about the way forward, remember that the real world is the people affected at the moment have funerals to arrange. They've lost their possessions. They've lost their homes. They are displaced. Their lives, those that have kept them, have been disrupted to such an extent that many of us, including myself, can only imagine. And that is the background to our discussion here. And we're having an important discussion, bringing together people of like mind and different contributions to make. But let's remember that that is in the background to all this. Justice and the truth can never fully compensate for that. But the fight for justice will take place. It will be long and frustrating. But the public inquiry is here. And we must use and utilise that public inquiry for all its worth. But already I have concerns about the composition of that inquiry. I, in fact, am not calling, it's personal, for the judge to resign now. Notice the word now. It is important to work with the structure that we've got, but my goodness me, when I see 3 barristers appointed to assist in, one the tremendous Bernard Richmond of criminal experience, but the other 2 able people of integrity, but corporate lawyers. I worry that two corporate lawyers of extreme ability and integrity are going to assist a corporate judge with one excellent choice of a criminal barrister. But it goes further than that. You know, under the Inquiries Act 2005, ministers, and particularly the Prime Minister, has the power under Section 3, under Section 4, and under Section 11 to appoint additional panel members of expertise and diversity to balance off the experience of the judge. Under Section 11, ministers have power to appoint assessors, people of experience and expertise, to advise the panel. I've not seen any of that yet. And so when we're discussing, in my view, the public inquiry, the questions that should be asked right at the top of the list is that we have power to make this inquiry inclusive, we have power to make this inquiry diverse, we have power to make this inquiry a group of individuals with the wide ranges of expertise needed to get to the truth. And we haven't got it yet. The terms of reference of this inquiry are important, and the input of survivors and those affected by this tragedy into those terms of reference are vital. And we wait to see in a few weeks' time whether all of our submissions to the judge are taken into account. But its terms of reference and its composition, those are the important things, in my opinion, we should be focusing on the public inquiry. And then comes the inquest, because being no doubt, contrary to what we've been hearing in some quarters, and as we can see from Hillsborough, there's still the opportunity for the inquest. And it could be an Article 2 inquest, a right to life inquest. But let's say just one thing about inquests. I know my time's short. I don't know whether any of you saw that tremendous drama that Jimmy McGovern wrote. Did you see that one scene in that programme where you had the inquest? I want to get a copy of that, because I do a lot of campaigning for legal aid and legal funding for inquests. When all the lawyers were being introduced as representing the NHS, the mental health services, the police, individual police officers, and they all introduced themselves. And then right at the end, the bereaved mother of the lad that was shot in this drama is introduced as representing herself. One of the big issues when it comes to an inquest, if it comes to an inquest, and it could come to an inquest, is funding. The bereaved should have funding, and at the moment in inquests, funding for the bereaved is an exceptional course. You do not get funding unless it is exceptional in inquests, if you are the bereaved. And I've done a number of inquests, some of them pro bono, because the bereaved do not have representation. That needs to change. And it sticks in my craw, wherever the craw may be. I work out where the craw actually is, but it sticks in it anyway. When I see at inquests, the police, be it the National Health Service, if they're being criticised, mental health services, corporations, the army, but if it be a military inquest, all funded with their lawyers, guess what? From taxpayers' money, your money, and the bereaved being told, you don't need funding, you don't need taxpayers' money, the coroner can look after you. Well, I'm yet to see a coroner pop into a conference room and give them advice as to how to persuade the coroner to come to a legal decision. It's ludicrous. These are the practical realities, and it's called access to justice. And access to justice is one of the most important aspects of what we as lawyers must achieve for our clients. Not the simple word that you'll get justice, but that you've got access to justice. I hear the dreaded rip of a piece of paper. Can I tell you, that rip of the piece of paper puts the fear of God into speakers. And I'm told 1 minute. Well, corporate manslaughter, I was going to deal with it. It's been ably dealt with by colleagues. I'm not going to repeat that. But let me just say this. If a corporate manslaughter charge is going to be brought, the CPS have to decide to do it. It's a CPS decision. They have to decide a threshold. Is it in the public interest? And is there a reasonable prospect of success? Those are the two criteria. Don't bank on it, I say. But I'd also say this one thing that hasn't been mentioned. If they don't, private prosecutions. Now I know they cost. Some people might do it without that. The point I'm making is this. Remember, the citizen has a right of a private prosecution. And you only need a group of 200, 300 citizens coming together, and you've got one. Long way down the line here, but remember private prosecution. Civil actions, of course, damages, homelessness, migration problems, welfare benefit. But you know what, in the 30 seconds I have, and probably there's going to be a lawyer's 30 seconds, so it's probably 60 seconds if you'll bear with me. It's not just the courts, because the courts, in my view, all of those, are not capable of delivering the justice that is required in Grenfell. This is political. And I'm sorry to have to say it, because some people don't like me saying that. Because this is not only legal, it is political. And it's not an accident, it's a crime. So let's just use the terminology. In America, for instance, use of politics and use of law go hand in hand. And we should not be ashamed or afraid to use the politics. As my colleague in the firefighters will know exactly how powerful that can be. Hand in hand with the law. This should not be normalisation. The comment made a little earlier about corruption being a normalisation of the situation. If there is, we don't know whether there is or there isn't at the moment. Process will tell. But it's a bit like something else I'm dealing with at the moment. We're challenging the government DUP deal at the moment. I know, I'm Mr. Popular. And one of the things we've been looking at is the normalisation of bribery. Watch this space. But these sort of things should not be normalised. And we should not let the court normalise it. We should not let the politicians normalise it. That's my final concluding remark here, really. Yes, the start of this, I confessed I was a lawyer. I'm ashamed to say so. But it's not just the law. Use everything at your disposal. The law, politics, your voice, your determination, your tenacity. And you know what? I've attended a few meetings in the community on this issue. You know what else? Use your anger.